Good day, everyone. Welcome to the podcast Health, Drug, and Policy. It's your host, Ayoko Fishola. I am so happy to have you here. It's been a while. I actually did a podcast on this channel, and I'm so excited to be back. How are you guys doing? How is everything over at you? And I hope you guys are exercising. So we're just going to jump right into today's topic. I'm going to be answering any questions that you have about muscles and fat, something for both men and women. So I'm going to be answering some of the frequently asked questions about muscles and fat. I'm going to be answering some questions that to help you eliminate any misconceptions and to help you improve your training program. So the number one thing that we have on our list basically is the question, what makes muscles grow? So I'm going to spare you the science, but I'm still going to try to give you a little bit of science so that you can get the idea about how your muscles grow. So according to Dayton, creatine has been identified as the messenger substance that turns on the RNA, which is the ribonucleic acid processing line to produce muscle growth. The RNA within a specified compartment of the cell acts like a assembly line and hooks it together various combinations of amino acids, sometimes in combination with complex sugar and fat to form different compounds that result in the increased size of certain muscular cells. So if I've been speaking French to you, what I'm trying to tell you is that what you eat matters. Okay, so your protein, your carbs, and your fat, they have an essential function to do with your muscle growth. Okay, apart from your genetics, what you eat also has a lot to do with your muscle growth and how much your muscles are going to grow. So the bottom line is you stimulate growth through high intense exercise, and you also must provide yourself with proper nutrition in order for your muscle to grow. So you have to note that I said high intensity exercise and not any type of exercise. So if you want your muscle to grow faster without any injury, then I definitely will be suggesting a high intensity workout. So this would be like HIIT workout, so HIIT exercise. So that basically directs us to the next question, which is basically, what do you mean by high intensity exercise? So if you don't know anything about a HIIT workout or high intensity workout, so this one is for you. So a high intensity exercise means the repetitive performance of a resistance movement that is carried to the point of momentary muscular fatigue. So this is the type of exercise that you will perform usually for a short period of time until your muscles are tired. Okay, generally this means that one set of each exercise should be performed in a strict style for 10 repetitions. At least 8 repetitions should be performed and not more than 12. Okay, so if you cannot make 8, then the resistance is too heavy, and if you cannot perform more than 12, then the resistance is too light. Okay, so that we're going to go to the next question basically, and if you want me to explain that a little bit further, it means that in a high intensity workout, you basically should be performing a minimum of 8 repetitions and a maximum of 12 repetitions. If you're doing less than 8, it means that the weight that you're carrying is too heavy, and if you're doing more than 12, it means that the weight is too light. Okay, so that gives you a little bit of idea about how high intensity exercise works. It's usually run within a short period of time. A high intensity workout could be running, it could be strength training, but then it's a high intensity type of workout. Okay, so if you're performing a high intensity workout and in strength training, do you essentially need a good form? The answer is yes. But the next question basically is asking, what is a good form? A good form requires all repetition to be executed in a slow, smooth style. So I think that definitely, and you would definitely agree with me, that every exercise that you perform requires a different type of form, because not all exercises are the same. Not even one exercise is the same. So, but I believe that every exercise, every good form requires a certain principle that should be followed. Okay, so you might be performing different types of exercises, but your form would be determined based on these principles that I'm going to be disclosing in a few seconds. Okay, so like the first one we said is basically a good form requires all repetition to be executed in a slow and smooth style. So if you have a personal trainer that's basically telling you, well, you need to perform your exercise very fast, and is rushing you to get through your exercise, maybe because he or she has another appointment, then you might need to reconsider, the trainer, or you might need to reconsider whether it's a friend training you, whether you want to continue in the program, because you rushing through your workout leads to lack of proper form and can cause injury. So there should be no throwing or jerking movement. Okay, special attention must be given to lowering the resistance. Okay, you should be paying special attention to the eccentric contraction, not much on the concentric contraction. So I will give the basic example for when you're doing a bicep curl. The concentric contraction is basically when you're lifting the weight towards you, and when you're taking the weight away from you is when you're doing the eccentric contraction, and that is basically where you want to spend much of your time at. Okay, so research shows that building muscular size and strength, lowering the resistance, is much more important than raising the resistance. Okay, so you want to gain more muscular size or strength, you need to pay more attention to lowering the resistance than you actually bringing it towards you. For example, okay, in terms of time, if it takes you 2 seconds to raise the weight, it should take you double the amount of time. So that's 4 seconds to lower the same weight. All in all, it should take about 1 minute to complete a set of 10 repetitions in a good form. Okay, so you should be spending a good amount of time, so 1 minute for a set, right? And that depends on the type of workout you're doing. It could take longer, but in the most basic and general set, it should be no more than 1 minute. Okay, so the next question basically is asking, where does pre-stretching fit in proper form? So pre-stretching is really important, especially if you want to get the best of your workout. If you want to get the best of every exercise that you're doing, you always have to pre-stretch, and everyone has different definitions of what pre-stretching is. There are different types of pre-stretching. You can do the passive pre-stretching or the dynamic pre-stretching when you really move it. But in terms of strength training, if that's what you want to do, you need to be very particular to the muscle group or the part of your body that you will be training. Okay, if that makes sense. Okay, so for example, if I wanted to train glutes for now, I would definitely have my resistance band, and I would train. I would do some pre-stretching, such as squats, banded squats, right? I'm going to do glute bridges. I'm going to do a bit of resistance band mat work before I jump into doing, my workout for the days. I could do squats and deadlifts and some of the basic, glute exercises. But before I do those things, I'm going to make sure I do have a good pre-stretching session. Pre-stretching is really important, because sometimes when you're targeting bigger muscles, because when you say we're going to the gym to do glutes now, yes, we're basically going to be targeting larger muscles in the glutes, but there are also smaller muscles in the glutes that we can't naturally train if we're just going into the gym and using equipment to train those muscles. We need tools like resistance band that's going to actually train those intrinsic muscles, right? So pre-stretching is involved when a muscle is pulled into a position of increased tension before the start of the contraction. So when a muscle is pre-stretched, a neurological signal is sent to your brain that results in a higher percentage of the muscle being contracted. So another reason why it's very, very essential for you to pre-stretch is because you need to warn your brain, like just sending a signal to your brain that, hey, I am going to be training this part of my body. Get ready, because you're going to be doing some work. And so because your brain is alarmed, your brain is able to be activated and to be in coordination with what you're doing. And I'm pretty sure you've heard something about the mind and muscle connection. So pre-stretching really helps to attain that in your training. And if you can do that every single day, you're going to be getting the best out of your workout. And you wouldn't just be training your physical body, but you'd also be training your mental state too, if that makes sense. Okay, so pre-stretching can be used effectively in strength training sessions. It can also be used in aerobic training as well. It can be used like in any type of sport or fitness, right? Practice it properly and you will be able to undo heavier weight and thus bring into action a greater percentage of your muscle mass during each repetition. So like we talked about, if you're increasing your tension, you're even able, because you're increasing the tension in your muscles before the start of the contraction, you're able to lift even heavier weights because now your muscles are prepped and they're activated. So now they're able to lift even heavier weights and they're all stretched, right? So that's the point of pre-stretching. Your muscles are stretched before you actually start your contraction. Okay, so the next question basically is, why is high intensity exercise best for stimulating muscular growth? Why do we need a high intensity exercise for stimulating muscular growth? Before we even dive into this, I just want to say that a high intensity workout is very, very good for someone who was previously injured in a sport and you want to get into fitness back, but you just have that fear that maybe you're going to get injured. If you're looking for a safer type of fitness or sport, then a high intensity exercise is something that would really help you achieve your goal. It's very safe and effective. So a few reasons why. Number one, I've given you, it's because it's by far the safest way to train. Okay, so by performing 10 repetitions as opposed to heavy maximum attempts, the intensity is high and the force is low. Okay, so if you're performing just 10 repetitions in an exercise, as opposed to, doing a heavy maximum attempt, your intensity is really high. So an example of a high intensity exercise would be stuff like running, speed walking, hill walking, climbing stairs, jump roping, and cross-country skiing. So you would find that this type of exercises are usually intense. They're usually very intense, but the force is usually low. So something about force is, we can give an example of when you're doing strength training and you're lifting a weight of 40 pounds to do, say, goblet squats, right? So that would be an example of that. So if you were doing an high intensity exercise, say you're incorporating different types of exercise into a dynamic, into an exercise flow, then you would be doing it would be very, very intense. The intensity would be high. The amount of time you're going to be doing that for would be very short. Your rest period would be short, but the force that you're going to be using, the weights that you're going to be using is going to be less weight. So you probably want to go for like 15 to 10 pounds instead of going to 40 pounds, even though you can actually lift 40 pounds, overall. Okay. So because the exercise is the exercise intensity is so high, you will be going to do to a less lesser force. You'll be using a lesser force, if that makes sense, right? So the second reason why, high intensity exercise is really good for stimulating muscular growth is because high intensity exercise produces faster results from less training time. So 10 sets of an exercise terminated, 2 repetitions short of a point of momentary failure will not produce results anywhere close to those that can be produced by one properly performed set carried to a point of failure. So in a high intensity workout, you don't really need to perform your workout for a long period of time. You basically just need to perform your workout using a good form and making sure that your intensity is high, but you're not using great force. So that's good. So when you increase the intensity of an exercise, your amount of energy, your amount of exercise must be reduced. So the amount of time must be reduced, even though the intensity is high. Okay, a full routine for a major muscle of the body can be completed in less than 30 minutes. Okay. So an example of a high intensity exercise, especially like if you're doing strength training, is basically when you're doing something like burpees and you're going into like squats, and then you are doing say a push-up after. Okay, so if you are, that is a high intensity workout. Okay, so a high intensity workout is basically doing a high intensity and low force. Okay, and you wanted to challenge yourself by using force, by using weights for your squats. Then if you don't really understand the principle, you might want to increase your intensity and also increase your force as well, whereby you're basically doing you're carrying a weight that you would normally carry if you weren't doing a high intensity workout. So for example, if you're doing a hypertrophy exercise, now you will want to go for heavier weights, but that means that you'll be spending more time, resting. Your recovery time would be extended, and the time, there's an extended time for you to rest. It's not as intense, right, as compared to when you're doing a HIIT workout. So if you didn't understand the principles of training and you went ahead to do a high intensity and high force workout and you're calling that a high intensity exercise, then you are taking a risk, because you're going to get injured ultimately, and especially if you're not taking the recovery time required. Okay, we're going to talk about this. So we said, and thirdly, yes, the high intensity training makes fewer demands upon your recovery ability than traditional training methods. Okay, so you don't really need much recovery time for this. So long, grueling workouts constantly force your recovery ability to work as hard as possible, merely to replace a large amount of energy expended. So as a result, very little is left as a reverse for growth, and strength increases. So, and that's why we often find that people who are doing like bodybuilding and they're carrying crazy heavy weights, they're into hypertrophy training, they're usually taking longer recovery time. They usually have to structure their workouts strategically, so it's a different situation. Sometimes they would be in the gym for a longer period of times because their recovery time are usually longer, so they have to spend that amount of time training. So a high intensity training and a large amount of training are mutually exclusive programs. So you can be doing a large amount of training and a mutually intensive training as well, and you're combining those two things into one program, right? Except like you're doing this for a sport, but then I'll definitely say like a coach has to supervise that. For example, I'm in the track and field team. I find myself doing strength training and doing also track workout too, which is mostly aerobic training. It has a lot to do with many different parts of fitness in sports. So That type of workout is a mutually exclusive program. Those are programs that are supervised by pros, like coaches that know the game, okay, and they know how to really use all those different components to make sure the athlete is getting the best training possible for better results, athletically. So you can have one or the other, but never both, okay? Except like you're on a mutually exclusive program, okay? Except like you have a goal to hit. For example, say you want to run 60 meters in 5 seconds, right? You can have one or the other, but never both. Therefore, for stimulating muscular growth, you have to practice your exercise in a high intensity fashion, but make it very brief and be consistent. So make it frequent. All right. So the next one we're going to talk about why does fat tend to accumulate around my waist. That's the next question. Why does fat tend to accumulate around my waist? So the reason why fat accumulates around your waist is, number one, because of your genetics. So as we age, we do tend to gain more fat. If you haven't taken my Mom Makeover course, you should definitely do that. I talked about the fact that we often lose muscles, about 1 pound of muscles per year, and because of the fact that we lose muscles, we tend to gain fat, okay, and our appetites tend to increase. So basically, that there is that, but we know genetically that where our fat is usually found is dependent on our genes. So can you do anything about this? You cannot do anything about this, unfortunately. But one thing that you can do is you can embark on a weight loss journey to help you target fat from every part of your body, because you cannot really target where you want to lose fat. And that leads us to the next question. Okay, so how can I reduce my percentage of body fat? Okay, so this one, you can reduce your percentage of body fat by engaging in caloric deficit. Okay, there is no way to go about this. You have to go on a special diet. If you want to check out my website, Vigorous Fitness Shop, I did a blog on this, and I talked about how to go about this. Okay, so by consuming 1,000 fewer calories a day than your maintenance level will require your body to burn several pounds of fat a week as a source of energy. Okay, so regarding this, I see like a lot of women who actually basically take out one component of their diet. For example, they just take out protein, or they take out carbs. They don't eat carbs anymore. They take out, worse is that they take out fat, but they don't understand that each and every component of our nutrition has a lot to do with our energy production. It has a lot to do with our mental health. It has a lot to do with our overall health. So if you're taking out something, you cannot replace it with the other. In your body, if you do that, your body would want to complement or substitute what you've taken out for by feeding on something else, and that is usually really bad for you. And those are the things that cause situations like inflammation in your body, because you don't have a balanced nutrition, if that makes sense. Okay, so one thing I also want to say is that doing lots of sit-ups and leg raises will not help you reduce your percentage of body fat. Okay, so if you've learned anything in this podcast, is that you have to eat a balanced diet. Okay, you have to eat a balanced diet. And if you want to engage in weight loss because you happen to be that person that gains fat around the waist, then you need to engage in caloric reduction. Okay, and I would assume that you're eating a balanced diet right now. So instead of you eating the quantity that you're eating right now, how about you reduce the quantity by 1,000 calories, and then we'll go from there. Okay, you need to work with a fitness trainer, because eventually at some point after tracking your progress, you will be able to, eat more calories. But then you need to have someone that's a professional that would be able to tell you that, okay, now is the time for us to like chill, and there's a time for us to, eat more or do more workouts, or where can we change, where can we kind of introduce something else in the diet, right? So these are something to just think about. Okay, so the next question is it impossible to spot reduce? So if you're confused about what spot reduction is it is basically according to Wikipedia, it says spot reduction refers to the claim that fat in a certain area of the body can be targeted for reduction through tech use or exercise of specific muscles in that desired area, right? So this is really funny. It's very impossible for you to target an area in your body that has fat, and for you to actually do work to make the fat just disappear. For example, like I said, it's impossible for you to do lots of sit-ups and leg raises and to reduce the fat around your belly. It's not possible. We find a lot of women who are suddenly motivated to go to the gym, and they have during the winter season, they've eaten a lot of chips and junk food, and they think that, well, maybe just by going to the gym and doing a lot of sit-ups and a lot of other core exercises that they can reduce the fat around that area, but it's impossible. Okay, the answer is no. Spot reduction does not work. It is impossible to spot reduce. Okay, it is impossible. Okay, on a reducing diet, fat is mobilized out of the multiple fat cells all over your body, then carried by the bloodstream to the individual active cells in your body and burned for energy. Okay, if you don't understand what that means, I assume that you've not checked out the Mom Makeover course. I think you should. We basically talked about what happens when you eat too much food. When you eat too much food, what happens is your body basically takes the energy that it needs from the food that you've eaten, and then the ones that it doesn't need, the nutrient that it doesn't need, it basically your body stores it. Your body stores it in your fat cells. So I'm pretty sure you notice that your fat is not just in one particular area, but it's in every place of your body. Okay, so when you gain weight, you don't just gain it in one area, you gain it in many different areas, multiple different areas. Okay, so when you go on a caloric deficit diet, what happens is you're telling your brain that, okay, now is the time for you to take all of the energy, all of the nutrients, okay, that you've stored. Now is the time for you to use it, because guess what? We're not going to be going on the same diet that we were going on. And your body would be advocating for itself that, because your brain is going to be thinking, well, the calorie that we're eating was perfectly okay, because look at me, like I had much more to store before. I had much more to store. It's like people who are greedy, right? We want to keep storing more money. But what we're basically teaching you, the language we're teaching you in fitness, is that the fewer you have, the better. The lighter you are, the better you're able to move and perform, the better your health is overall. Okay, so that's basically what you're trying to teach your body. It's the first few weeks, it's going to be hard, but it is not impossible. It's a language, a new language that you're trying to teach yourself, and it's through discipline that you're going to be able to achieve it. But if you are consistent and you stick to it, you are going to eventually see the result. Okay, so what happens now? What happens is when you go on a caloric deficit diet, fat is mobilized out of the multiple fat cells all over your body, and it's then carried by the bloodstream to the individual active cells in your body, and it's burned for energy. Okay, so it's burned for energy. Thus, fat stores are withdrawn from your total body fat and not from one isolated location. So that's what we talked about before. So when your body is going through this process of actually taking what it's stored in its storehouse, okay, it doesn't just take the fat from one particular area and just neglect the other area, which is, that's the language that you were teaching your brain before when you were going about doing the leg raises, right? Now, what your body does is it's going to start speaking a different language, where it's like, okay, now I do have this fat stored somewhere else and I could use that for energy. Okay, I'm going to take that out in all the different places. Wherever I've kept them, I'll take them and I'm going to use them for energy. So that's what your body begins to do. Okay. Individual exercise will develop your muscles, but they will do little or nothing to reduce the percentage of your body fat. So if you're just doing exercise, you're not really on a caloric deficit type of diet, it's not really going to do much for you. Although, building muscle helps to, burn fat, but to a degree. You need to be on a caloric deficit diet. If you're serious about this, the reason why you're going about this journey is concrete, then there should be no problem. I feel like you will be able to go through with this, right? So the next question is basically, don't any spot reducing gadgets work? The answer is no. If spot reducing does not work, then what makes you feel like as if spot reducing gadgets would work? Not only do they not result in permanent fat loss, but many of these gadgets are dangerous. So let me examine some of the most popular ones. One is the motorized exercycle. An exercycle is a motorized bicycle. I said bicycle. Oh my goodness. Okay, that moves your legs or torso for you. This one you can find it at the gym. I know I do have this at my university's gym. You just sit down. It's very comfortable, and you put your leg in the well, and then you just move it. But then it's like you're not really moving the leg, because when you stop moving, it's still moving. It's not as if you're doing anything. Since the machine is pulling your leg up and down, it is not doing it's doing the work for you, and you're not doing any work. So you're just spending your time there relaxing, basically. Okay. So number 2, the electrical shock. And you have to notice that all of these things I'm going to mention basically requires that you will do no work. You will just sit down and you will just, your fat is just going to burn. That's the idea of the whole thing. It's promoting laziness, but fitness has nothing to do with laziness. Fitness has a lot to do with discipline, putting in the work. It's about restriction. It's about self-control. So if you don't have those things, you need to start somewhere, and you need to build your self-control to where it needs to be. Okay. So number 2, we're talking about electrical shock. This machine supposedly makes the muscle contract involuntarily through small electrical charges. The muscle movements are too small to consume enough energy to cause a noticeable reduction in fat. Doctors believe certain of these machines can be dangerous to the heart and other organs which respond to electric stimuli. So the idea of electrical shock is basically that they will target a place, and then they will basically give you some electrical shock, basically thinking that it's going to help drain the fat from there. This whole thing is really, really weird. Okay, it's really, really weird. I definitely will not suggest this. Okay. It's saying the muscle movements are too small to consume enough energy to cause a noticeable reduction in your fat. So you're shocking your muscles, thinking, hoping that it's going to help to consume energy, the energy that is in your fat. So it's like it's wanting to, oh my goodness, like it's wanting to do the reaction that your brain originally is supposed to do automatically when you go on a caloric deficit. But you're basically shocking your muscles to do the work that your brain is supposed to do. And it doesn't make any sense. So number 3 actually is called the vibrating belt. A mechanical vibrating belt may relax you and make you feel better, but it certainly will not remove fat. Okay. So fat cannot be shaken, it cannot be tickled, beaten, or stroked from your body. Okay. Another one is the rubber cloth. This cloth which range from belt, shorts, skirts, shirts, no skirts. Imagine if we had something like a rubber skirt, but shirts to full outfits. Oh, sometimes we have the full outfits too, okay? And are supposed to make you sweat off. They're supposed to make you sweat off the fat and inches. So there is no point to this, because eventually what would happen if you're wearing a rubber cloth is that you're going to be dehydrated. Okay, you're going to be dehydrated and you will not be losing any fat cells. I'm sorry. You will be losing water weight. And eventually you will drink water and you're going to gain the weight back. Another one is sauna wraps. Basically, this scenario is this principle: your body or the specific part you want to be reduced is wrapped with tape, which can be soaked in a secret solution. You then sit in a sauna bath for 30 minutes, and supposedly the secret solution draws the excess fat from your body. And again, you cannot passively sweat fat off your body. I repeat that again. You cannot passively sweat off fat from your body. Okay? So the next question that was asked is basically, how can I build up my wind? So you might be confused about what wind means. Your wind basically is your cardiorespiratory endurance. So first, exercise must be of sufficient intensity to increase the heart rate to at least 140 beats per minute. Second, this heart rate must be sustained for at least 10 to 12 minutes. Thirdly, the exercise bout must be repeated 3 to 4 times a week. In general, the more the body's large musculature is involved in the exercise, the easier it will be for your heart rate to exceed 140 beats per minute. For example, jogging, bicycling, swimming, proper weight training are much better cardiorespiratory exercise than an equal amount of softball, golf, in tennis. Okay, is there any difference between the next question? Is there any difference between muscular size and strength? Okay, I mean, there is a close relationship between the size of a muscle and, the strength. Like if you increase your muscle size, like you automatically are increasing your strength. Okay, so let's go to the next question, which says, which type of equipment can make me strongest? So we already said, the best exercise for you to do in order for you to get strong without any injuries, that's safe, it's basically the high intensity exercise. So you can also do you can use barbells, you can do universal exercise, you can do isokinetics. Those ones are really expensive, and you can also do the equipment, and you can also do the Nautilus exercise as well. If you want to know more about that, you should also check my blog at Vigorous Fitness Shop. Okay, the next question. All right, so the next question says, what about strength training during the season? And this question is basically for people, and this is for a lot of people, most people, even me. The winter comes and we're just super demotivated to go to the gym, and perhaps you're not just demotivated, perhaps you have your interest in other things and it's consuming your time. So what happens then? Is it advisable for you to just ditch it for a season and go back the next season? What would happen to all your progress that you made prior to this moment? So essentially, studies have shown that a high level of strength development shows a measurable degeneration after as little as 96 hours of normal activity. Okay, so that's the amount of strength that you lose. Okay, there's a high degeneration that happens after you've been sedentary for 96 hours. So therefore, to maintain or increase muscular strength during the season, you should continue your high intensity training at least twice a week. That's the minimum. If possible, workouts should be performed the day after the game and then again 3 days later. Okay? Okay, so the next question is really interesting. It's basically asking, do some athletes take hormones or end drugs to develop larger muscles? I feel like everyone knows they do. Yes, athletes do take drugs. They do take hormones to get larger muscles. The drug that they take it's usually a synthetic derivative of a male hormone testosterone. Okay, some of them would be Dianabol, Anavar, Nileva, and Winstrol. Okay, so you can see this like happening in the bodybuilding industry that's really, really competitive. So like even the women will take it, and eventually they will start to have deeper voice, beards. They will start to grow beards, and some of them will even grow an extra genitalia. The men would Some of them would be impotent eventually. So there are side effects to all of these things, like many side effects. Okay, some of them even have anger issues. They develop anger issues, right? So it is really, really bad to take drugs like this. Okay, and the problem that we have with athletes taking this type of drugs is that they overdo it, because they eventually see that, well, nothing's happening. They think they're invincible, and they go ahead to take the larger dosage. So if you have somebody in your life, maybe it's your boyfriend, your husband, that's taking synthetic testosterone, you should discourage them from taking it. Also, because eventually when they do take it in larger quantities, what happens is their bodies stop to produce testosterone, which basically is what causes them to be impotent in the first place. Their bodies stop producing the hormone naturally, and then it becomes their bodies become dependent on the synthetic testosterone. All right, so let's go to the last question for the day. And the question is, do protein supplements and vitamin pills help? So do these things help? Okay. Number one is, to be honest, they do help. Okay, it's just like the drug and the hormone, okay, pills. But what we do at Vigorous Fitness Shop is basically we go about nutrition, we go about our health in a more organic way. You do need to have a certain amount of protein and various vitamins present in your body to carry forth the muscular growth processes once you have started, right? So once you work out, you need to, have a proper nutrition. Okay, I remember when I started, in my career as an athlete, like I've always thought that wasn't enough, and maybe because I saw other people taking extra stuff like protein shake, taking creatine, and I would watch all of the vlogs on YouTube, and I thought that it was normal. I was so into Gymshark and the rest of them, and as you dive really deep into the good part of fitness, okay, the healthy part of fitness, you realize that all of these things are not necessary, right? Because we can get everything that we need in the whole food that we eat, okay? And I know I said it in my mom makeover course that you can take supplements. It's dependent on you, but I would definitely say don't overdo it, okay? Because there is no regulations while taking this type of supplements. Like, for example, they say, well, women should take iron pills, but what's the dosage that we're supposed to be taking, right? What's the dosage that we're supposed to be taking? And some women actually overdose on taking iron pills, and which is very detrimental to their health. Okay, so if you eat a balanced diet composed of a variety of foods, you are certain to get more than enough of the various nutrients for maximum muscular growth, okay? So to simplify the matters, nutritionists have divided foods into 4 basic groups. So number 1, you should eat meat. Not should, it's optional. You should not, be like, well, I have to eat meat, even though, you're your conscience is telling you you shouldn't eat meat. Like, it's not necessary. If you want to be vegan, like, you can be vegan, but don't think that you're making any extra sacrifices by not eating meat. Like, you can, have your protein and your iron through other different means. Okay. The other one that was suggested is dairy. You don't have to have dairy. You don't need to drink milk. Society imposes things for us to include in our diet, which is basically a means of control. So you need to figure out what you want to, ingest in your own system, and without actually violating your values. Okay. So the third one is actually fruits and vegetables. I feel like everyone is okay with eating fruits and vegetables, but one thing I'll definitely ensure is that I would suggest is that, we should all aim to have the protein, the carbs, and the fat in our diet. No matter what type of diet we're consuming, we should aim to have those three things there. And then we can focus on other type of minerals, and then we can focus on, the spices in our kitchen, like the turmeric and other spices that would really help to give us to help complement our overall diet, right? And then the fourth one that was mentioned is the bread and cereal. Of course, this is also optional as well. But the bread, you can be creative with that. There are different types of bread depending on what area that you're at. But just be careful with the brand as well. If you want to know like the different components that is in the food that we eat in terms of ingredients and what we should be boycotting, then you should definitely be taking the Mom Makeover course, because everything is in there. Okay. So bottom line is, you do not need to waste your money on protein supplements or vitamin pills, because honestly, I don't see the difference between the supplements and vitamin pills, and the hormones and drugs. Although they say that, if you take a high dosage of supplements and vitamin pills, nothing is going to happen to you. But yes, you're going to be having side effects, right? Yes, you're going to be having side effects. So where is the regulation there? How much are we taking, and how do we know we're taking, too much, right? So the final analysis, your training program should be designed with two goals in your mind. Number one, the production of maximum strength of the muscles involved in your sport. Okay. Number two, the reduction or elimination of body fat to a minimum. Okay, to a minimum. Don't be obsessed about weight loss or weight maintenance. If you're living a good lifestyle, if you're eating good, minding what goes into your system, then you should be relaxed, and don't let the stress of control get to you. Okay, so both of these goals can be accomplished through a high intensity exercise along with a reasonable diet. Okay, so you want to gain muscle, you want to reduce fat. You can do all of this, you can do all of this by reducing your calorie intake, or by minding the food that you eat. Maybe your nutrition is good right now, but you need to mind the food that you eat. And also you need to engage in a HIIT workout, or whatever type of sports you're doing. Just make sure you're getting your heart rate up to about 140. Okay, so yes, so that's what we have to say today. Thank you so much, guys, for listening to me today. I really appreciate you. I'm going to see you guys in my next podcast. So take care of yourselves. Bye, guys.